Yo, what's going on, Mr. TDN in the building? So we have a new dev stream coming out for the Aftermarket collection event. So of course I went ahead and did a reaction video. So let's go ahead and watch the stream. New event tomorrow, Apex Legends. Let's get it. Yeah. But that caustic heirloom is so dope.
To the victor go the spoils.
That is dope. I don't know how that's gonna be.
Hey everybody, welcome to our next
Flashpoint
dev stream. We're here to talk about our Aftermarket collection event, which launches tomorrow at 10 a.m. Our patch notes are live, the blog
10 a.m. Eastern.
Links are in the description, so go ahead and pull
Pacific.
those up. That has all the details, and we're going to go into some of the context of some of the cool stuff that we're launching this week. Joining me today is my usual cast of characters. Great to see you guys again. Jason, Mark, David, Daniel. We got a lot of stuff to cover, so I think let's just get right into it. Now, before we're going to talk about the event itself and the limited time mode, the cosmetics, we're going to talk about something we've been working on for a while. We know fans have been anxiously waiting for this, and it's finally coming. Crossplay beta. Woo! Super excited. So,
Crossplay.
why don't you walk us through the Crossplay beta, how this is going to work for players when it launches?
Yeah, really excited about this one. So Crossplay Beta is it's a fully featured version of Crossplay. We're calling it beta so that we can
work on it.
We want to test the features at scale. We want to get feedback from people, but everything should be there and working. Xbox, PS4, PC players, they can all play together. Steam and Switch will have crossplay when they launch, later. Console players will all matchmake with each other.
Whoa! The disruptive round, disruptive round.
They'll go into the PC player pools.
The Mastiff is
PC
bad
players
gold.
Can't join console player games
Whoa!
under any circumstances. You can find your friend just by pulling up the UI, typing in your name. It'll search through all the consoles. It'll tell you all the people that have that name and add their icon, so you can kind of make sure you're picking your right friend and not, Mark Yampolsky on Xbox and not, on PS4. We have cross-platform voice chat works, which is really cool. There is no cross-progression right now. We think this is a valuable feature for sure, but it won't be available at launch.
That's cool.
We'll have a little more talk about that whenever Apex launches on Steam later this year. And just as a note, Crossplay is on by default. As soon as you get the patch, it is on. You can turn it off, but I wouldn't suggest it necessarily. If you turn it off, you're going to be only matchmaking with people on your console that also have it turned off. So that will probably be a very small amount of people, and you probably won't find a game. There's one little gotcha that we've seen that is on Xbox. I believe it's only Xbox. You can actually have crossplay turned off in your Xbox settings. So definitely check for that if you're on Xbox and it's not working the way that you think. That setting can be set, by you or your parents or whoever.
Let's go! I cannot wait.
Let us know your feedback as you guys are checking it out, and let us know those bugs that we need to go fix for it. But we're really excited to finally
bugs
offer
are
that up
coming
to everybody.
Every Apex update.
As this is a collection event, we got a bunch of other cool stuff that's going to be going on. I think first thing I want to talk about is our next limited time mode, which is a really wild mode that we're going to be introducing. So Mark, our MC of limited time modes, why don't you walk us through Flashpoint and how that plays?
Yeah, so we wanted to really experiment with how healing works in Apex with this mode, and I'm a big fan of Battlefield and Halo, and we wanted to see what a healing system from that kind of FPS felt like inside of Apex. The kind where you don't have to use syringes or shield cells, and instead, as long as you're not taking damage for a certain period of time, you're going to auto heal.
Oh,
crap! And to see what those engagements felt like. So really, the centerpiece of this mode are these zones called Flashpoints, which are these massive zones that we dot around Kings Canyon. So these Flashpoints are special because inside of these zones, these are places where you can regenerate your health as long as you're not in combat. So if you haven't taken a bullet in a little while, your health and your shields will automatically regenerate over time. You have to learn where these are pretty quickly because in this mode they're the only way to heal. Healing items do not spawn on the ground or any other loot in this mode. So if you want to heal, you gotta be inside of a flashpoint. And what that means is that if you want to heal,
Gibby looking like a damn character from Cars.
In the nearby radius is also going to want to be healing inside of that flashpoint. We're hoping that it creates these really awesome multi-squad TDMs where you're able to disengage, heal, flank other squads, and do all of these things.
That's gonna be crazy.
Fights that last longer than Apex fights typically do, because you're not down and out when you're healing. You can still use your weapon. You can still engage. We think this is going to create a really interesting combat dynamic.
That's gonna be crazy.
Very cool. And the circle, as I understand, is works as always be closing circle, in that it's going to be constantly closing. And then with the end circle, we want that to sort of always
oh my god,
on one of those flashpoints, right?
Yep. So the circle is always going to close on a flashpoint, guaranteed. Your final fight is always going to have healing, as long as you're able to not get shot for like 7 seconds.
I'm already excited to watch those end games.
It's gonna be crazy
right now, when the squads are all converging on that and doing those giant fights.
Some really fun strategy that happens there too, when because we show you on the map, on the dropship, where the last ring is going to be. So you have that choice right out of the dropship. Do I want to land at the flashpoint that it's going to close on, try and loot up and try and like hold it, or do I want to land somewhere else and come into that? But then by the time you get there might be a bunch of fights happening, and you have to try and get in there, without healing. And yeah, it's made for some crazy end games.
It wouldn't be a collection event without the cosmetics, of course.
Yes, that's what we need.
Artists have really outdone themselves this time. I think Wraith probably has to be one of the ones that stands out to me right now. I'm interested from you guys what some of your favorites that you've seen that players are going to be able to collect in this collection event.
Yeah, look, I'm not a Wraith man, but I might be now.
Oh my gosh, it looks so disgusting.
The Prowler Wraith is so good.
I really like the Revenant one as well.
That's a really good one too. I think Watson definitely. The Octane one I think looks, look at him. And
yeah, Octane's sick.
Yeah, I think I really like the Gibraltar one because we know he likes to ride motorbikes, and so like I feel like that's such a fitting thing for Gibraltar right now. Or I could just imagine him on a big Harley. He looks like he is a Harley, like a Harley Transformer or something like that. So I mean, yeah, shout out to the artists once again, just really killing it. Also, with our collection events, that means we're introducing our next heirloom item,
Caustic,
which is for our evil scientist, Mr. Caustic.
Dr. Caustic. You worked hard for that title.
Of course, Dr. Caustic, our gas daddy.
Gas daddy.
Really, just incredible work again. Pieces like this that really sell them. It's just such a collaboration. It's effects, it's animation, it's our model shop coming together, and of course design.
It is so dope.
Just really incredible job. And so this will work similar to our other collection events, where if you have purchased everything on the track in the collection event, you will be able to receive the heirloom item for free after that. And then after the event is over, he will be released into the heirloom loot pool, where you can try your best to go earn them. That's sort of the breakdown of the overall event, of sort of what to expect and what we're going to have there as far as content and new features are there. We've also got a pretty sizable patch with some really exciting stuff that we're going to go through here. So I think to kind of kick it off, Daniel, why don't you and Kaylee, why don't you two walk us through some of the stuff we're going to be doing with Legends for 6.1 that players can expect.
All right. Well, as soon as Kaylee lets me. Hi, Kaylee. We have 2 big changes that are coming for 6.1 and a bunch of small ones. I'm going to walk through the small ones real quick. I'm going to start with Bloodhound, because I got my own Bloodhound here. Bloodhound, they got a very exciting... Yes, you're very excited.
You got another buff?
Very good. They got a very exciting change in 6.0 with the ultimate and the tactical scans happening much more quickly. We like that. We like that moment of power. We think 6 seconds may have been maybe slightly too much, so we are going to dial that down a little bit to 8 seconds. And as I point out in the patch notes, which you're probably reading along at this moment, that means with a 4-second scan duration. So if you're scanned, you're revealed for 4 seconds. This now means you're revealed for 4 seconds, you're not revealed for 4 seconds. So it's basically half and half. We didn't think that it was overly frustrating, but we did definitely see Bloodhound's pick rate rocket up all the way to the top. So if you are a new Bloodhound main, welcome, as they would say. The other two small changes I wanted to mention real quick, because they're pretty straightforward, are Rampart and Loba, our 2 newest legends in the game. they both could use a little love for Rampart. Sheila the turret is meant to be mostly a defensive tool, right? So if you get Sheila set up right area, you should be able to lock that area down, and we're seeing that. But we do also want to sometimes see the success case of you just killing someone with Sheila, right? That should happen every now and then, and that's happening very rarely and getting more and more rare as people learn to recognize the laser beam and the spin-up sound and everything.
Get out of there.
So what we did for this patch is Sheila starts out very inaccurate and then sort of like tightens the bullet spread in over time, and we accelerated that. So the bullet spread's going to tighten way more quickly now, and you'll be able to laser people.
Sheila's gonna be
the other one is Loba. Loba's interesting to us because there is such a clear power fantasy with her. Loba is the loot character, right? Like, if you have a Loba on your team, you're going to be set for loot, right? That's the theory, at least. In practice, what happens right now is that by the time Loba's ultimate becomes available for the first time, you are likely to have already looted up your first POI. And then it's like, yeah, you could use that ultimate now, and maybe I'll get that one mod that I'm still looking for. And there wasn't really a clear way that we could fix that by just dropping her ultimate's cooldown, because it's at 90 seconds, it's already very low. So what we ended up doing is saying when you land for the first time out of the plane, your ultimate's already half charged.
Ooh.
So you will still have to scrounge for the first weapon. You don't get a first weapon for free. It's still going to be 45 seconds until you could use it for the first time, but that should make it come online in time for you to finish putting together your initial.
But wait, what about Pathfinder,
man? The other thing we did is we increased the range on both the passive and ultimate. They're the same range, by the way, if you didn't know. So if you can see a purple item through a wall, that means if you drop an ultimate right where you're standing, you'll be able to pick up that purple item. We increased that from, I didn't do the conversion, but it's 3,100 units to 4,500 units. That should give you a rough idea of how much it increased. I don't know what it is in meters. I'm a bad European. It should allow her to get a much larger percentage of most POIs. I know, for instance, if you go to Capacitor, you can now get most of the big buildings in Capacitor into one ult, which feels really good. And by the way, landing Capacitor as Loba feels extra good because getting a second charge of that ultimate right away feels pretty nice. You should try it. Alright, that's the small stuff out of the way. Two big changes are happening this patch. First of all, let's talk about Wraith. Wraith is probably no surprise to anyone, the most popular character in our game if you look at just like the history of the game. And not only has she been the most popular, she's also been the most powerful along all of the axes of power that we look at. So she's not just a little bit better than everything else. It's like Wraith is up here and then everybody else is like in a group down here. So she's very powerful. And we've tried to nerf her a bunch of times by attacking her abilities. We increased the spin up, I want to say cast time of her tactical. She has the 1.25 seconds now where she's vulnerable, where she's like going into phase.
We go with another nerf.
Put additional cooldown on her ultimate, and it doesn't seem to really move the needle, and she drops like for 2 weeks and then is right back up where she was before, which to us suggests that it's not just her abilities that cause her power. Plus both her and Pathfinder, who's going to be, spoiler warning, the last thing I'll talk about, we've nerfed them sort of like to the point where we don't want to nerf them anymore because they're starting to feel like not very fun characters anymore. You play those characters to phase or to grapple, and if you can only do that once in the blue moon,
God, what are you
that's
gonna
not
do with
super
Pathfinder?
exciting. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to identify why else she is so powerful, other than her abilities, which are definitely powerful. And what we've discovered is her sprint animation, which is very powerful in that what she does is she tucks in. And by tucking in, she reduces the shootable area that other people see, making her much harder to hit.
Oh, wow.
So that seems pretty straightforward. We know that people love her current run, sprint animation. You know the one I'm talking about, the Naruto sprint. It's a lot of character, it's a lot of recognizability, where you can tell from a distance that it's a Wraith. So this was not a decision we came to easily, but we've been playtesting with it internally for a while, and it's been playtesting well. So we have replaced the sprint animations with animations where she's much more upright and not hiding as much of a shootable area. So I know you all will have feedback for us, and we will be listening. Speaking of which, our very final update is Pathfinder, who semi-recently had a pretty large nerf to his
tactical. You nerfed him.
We increased the cooldown from 15 to 35 seconds, which We heard you, Pathfinder mains. That was very, very frustrating. You feel like you could barely ever grapple anymore. And Pathfinder is a very similar situation. So I was a little bit reductive earlier. It's not just Wraith up here. It's like Wraith up here, Pathfinder here, and then everybody else in the group down there. So those two have historically been very powerful in our game. For Pathfinder, we saw a very similar thing with the 15 to 35 second grapple change, where he did drop down meaningfully in pick rate and win rate, and over the course of, I think it's 5 or 6 weeks, basically came up to exactly where he was before, which tells us that that change did not hit its goal. We don't want to just revert back to the 15-second change, because we do think that there are other things that are important about that change that are good for the game. But we saw a suggestion on Reddit, actually, that we like quite a lot, which is to make the cooldown of Pathfinder's grapple scale with how much distance he actually traveled. So if you get the super long slingshot around the lamppost downhill slide, yes, you're still going to have a 35-second cooldown. But if you are bad like me and just face plant into a wall, or if you are maybe very, very smart and you find those valuable short distance grapples, you can now have as short as a 10-second cooldown. So if you can actually see it as you grapple, the cooldown, you can literally visually see an element go down and the cooldown tick up as you're traveling. But most of the time, yeah, you will have a variable cooldown somewhere, realistically speaking, in the 15 to
I like that
28, 30-second range. That seems to be what I usually get in playtests now.
I'm fully expecting all the Pathfinder mains to be spending a lot of time in firing range.
We stole that from a game called Titanfall 2. I hope those devs aren't too upset.
I've heard of that game, yeah.
Lawsuit incoming.
Good one. We also have some really cool quality of life stuff. A couple of them you may have seen if you've been watching some of the previous dev streams that snuck in there on some of the footage. But McCord, do you want to walk us through some of the new quality of life changes we're going to have in 6.1?
I thought we didn't acknowledge when we did that, Jay.
It was on purpose, excuse me.
Yeah, we've got a couple of cool things I think that people will like. So, we did the Evo armor change in season 6, and now you can easily get into a situation where you've got a blue armor that's got 100 armor left, and you're looting somebody that has a blue armor on their box, and you're not sure if that's a better armor or not. So we've added some UI elements so that you can see how much damage is on your armor versus their armor and which one is better, so you can easily make that decision really quickly.
Dope.
So that one's a good one. Another one that I thought was interesting was that we added a little icon next to items that your friendlies can use. So if you see if there's like a backpack or something, and you already have a blue backpack, but there's a blue backpack on the ground, and your buddies have a gray backpack, there'll be a little icon there to reinforce that you should ping this for them. We also added random favorite selection to the music and the load screen categories. So that one's nice. I've seen that one requested a bunch. We also added a what we call performance display. So this is an option that you need to go find in the menu and turn it on. It'll be off by default, but when you do turn it on, it'll come up in the top right, and it'll give you some information about how your game is performing. So it'll give you stuff about your frame rate. It'll give you some stuff about your ping and your packet loss and stuff like that. So the information's in the patch notes for those of you who are
we need that.
savvy enough to want to look at that. I think that's going to be really good for people to help understand why they might be experiencing some lag. Sharing that with us will help us diagnose the problem a little bit too. So, and then for streamers and people that just like to be anonymous, we added anonymous mode, which you can turn on as well, which is sort of the other half of streamer mode that we get requested a lot, which basically makes you, it hides your name in the champion presentation, in the obituary, any place where living people can see your name. There's some other stuff in there, some smaller stuff, so definitely check the patch notes to see the rest of the smaller things. And then the last thing that I just wanted to touch on was audio feedback that we've been hearing from the community. We know that there are issues with the audio right now.
Yes.
I just felt like it was really important that we say that. We are, every patch we work on audio, and it's just a beast that we're battling with. So I wanted to give a little hope that we are doing some more significant changes to address this in the future.
Yes.
Just know that we know, and we're looking at it, and we're working on it.
Oh, we need that. We need that.
To try and make this better. So.
Yeah, I think we're looking forward to kind of like, of course, shipping some of those changes, also talking about them a little bit more in detail. But yeah, appreciate kind of us just, McCord letting all of our fans know. We hear you. We hear
yes,
you.
We hear you.
You hear us? I hope so.
We also have some weapon changes that are coming in this patch.
Yes.
David, what you got for us this time?
All right, so we have a couple adjustments, and I'll also make a note on a couple of things we're looking at but not currently adjusting in 6.1 here. So one of the weapons that we improved a lot in Season 6 was the triple take. One major thing we did to it is we integrated the choke into it by default. Another thing is that we increased sniper ammo availability for it, which is a minor buff for the buff nonetheless. And then the final big buff we did for it is we increased the fire rate from 1.2 to 1.4 shots per second. All these things combined pushed the triple take a little bit stronger than I think we wanted. So in 6.1, we're reducing the fire rate back down in between the pre-Season 6 value and Season 6 value. So it'll go from 1.4 to 1.3. In playtest, this has been playing pretty well. This affects the TTK in a way that feels appropriate, so the triple take doesn't feel like it's a little too strong. It should also affect some of its close range power, although a lot of that will still remain. Another thing that we are updating is the devotion. The devotion seems to be in a better spot now since the first nerf we made to it shortly after Season 6. But one area that we find it to still be too strong that doesn't really seem appropriate is in hipfire spread.
Yep.
So because the devotion has a really large magazine, even though it has a somewhat large hipfire spread, it's still quite strong in hipfire. And part of the idea of the LMGs as a weapon class is that you can't be too mobile while fighting with them, and they have a weakness at closer range against weapons like SMGs. The strong hipfire capability kind of pushed against that in a way that doesn't feel appropriate. So in this patch, we are also increasing the spread, the size of the crosshair spread on the devotion. So it'll increase by default by a small amount, and then also while you fire, it will increase slightly more. So in total, when you have fired it for a short period of time, the total hip fire size will be larger. We want to, you noticed when I was talking about this,
Devotion,
I mentioned LMG as opposed to just the devotion. We try and keep numbers like this somewhat consistent amongst weapon types when it seems appropriate.
What about the Spitfire?
So for example, the L-Star is a little bit of a weird LMG, so we're not touching it here. But we are also doing the same hipfire nerf to the Spitfire to keep it with this consistent numbers with the devotion. We don't really want to nerf the Spitfire very hard, so we're also improving the recoil accuracy and reducing the amount of recoil randomness horizontally it has. That should make it a little more controllable, and if you learn the pattern, it's going to be more consistent. That may or may not be enough. We're going to keep our eye on it. If the Spitfire feels like it's really been nerfed after this hipfire nerf, then we'll make another buff to it to try and bring it back up to speed. The last thing I wanted to mention is that we are looking at weapons like the Burstfire Hemlock and the Burstfire Prowler and their current power level, as well as, always keeping an eye on all the other things. Right now, we don't feel like they are too strong or in an area that needs an emergency or a quick patch in 6.1.
Yeah, that's all right.
We're keeping our eye on it. If it gets any more problematic, we'll make a quick patch, and otherwise we'll probably make some adjustments potentially at Season 7. That's the major weapon meta stuff for Season 6.1. So as always, reading your feedback, looking at data, playing the game, seeing how everything goes out. Yeah, that's it for me.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate it, guys. And for those of you at home, there's additionally bug fixes and other details. So again, patch notes in the link in the blog. Make sure to read through all of that, as well as many of the designers put in some context into there for a lot of the changes. Guys, thank you so much, as always, for coming in to talk about this stuff and giving some context to the players. For those of you at home, enjoy the Aftermarket event. Let us know your feedback. We're going to be watching for it, and we appreciate all the support. Thank you so much. Have fun. We'll see you next month.
What's happening next month? Split. Yo, TDN signing out. That was the Aftermarket collection event coming tomorrow, 10 a.m. They didn't say Eastern or Pacific, but I will be streaming. You know it. Let's get it. Signing out. Yo.